de Jongh. Welcome to the Art and Science of EMDR, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Nice to be there.
Yeah, so we are talking about EMDR 2.0 today. So I wanted to start by asking you, what is EMDR 2.0 and how is it different from the traditional EMDR that most of us learned in our basic EMDR training?
Yeah, most of it, of what I'm going to present is on the working memory theory, not so much on EMDR 2.0, but 2.0, 2.0 is, it's based on the working memory theory. You can see that working memory, you can see the working memory theory as an operating system.
Yes.
So a new operating system, like you have your iPhone, you say, hey, I update with a new system, and that means that everything works on the working memory theory. So EMDR 2.0 is based on the principle of motivation, asking the patient to be more a co-patient, a co-therapist, I mean. It's also initiating the memory. So it's a way of activating the memory in a more sensible way or a more active way than you normally do with EMDR. Just asking to pay attention to a picture. No, you say, hey, and you don't have to tell me the story or so, but yes, let's add some stimuli. For instance, the sound of a dog when you are bitten by a dog, and that's part of the trauma. So you're more busy with activating the memory. So it's when the memory is activated in the working memory, you can tax it. And taxation is also not only the slow eye movements, but all kinds of things that you think it's taxing the working memory. Yeah? And that can be all kind of things. So I'm going to talk about the working memory theory with all these concepts in it, and then but the therapy is something different. Then you have the protocol. The protocol is more the standard protocol, so it's not different. But these parts, the motivation at the beginning, for instance, I would say to the patient, say, hey, you are going to think about the memory as much as you can. I am going to distract you as much as I can and see what happens. I think, let's see who wins. I think I win. So then you ask the patient not only to be passive, but you are really ask the patient to really keep that memory as much as possible, fully activated in the working memory. So, and then that's the prediction of the working memory theory, that if a memory is in the working memory, it's fully activated, and you tax it to a maximum, not only a little bit, but to the maximum, then EMDR works much better than, that's the prediction. It works much better than the regular EMDR standard. But we're doing an RCT of this in this moment, in which we compare EMDR traditional form with EMDR 2.0 and the Flash in a 3-arm randomized clinical trial at this moment. So, but we already did some studies and showing that that EMDR 2.0 has something to offer to patients, but also to therapists. And it's a lighter form. It's much more fun. People, as a therapist, you have much more fun and you have much more variation. Also, the patient has much more variation. But this was not so much about EMDR 2.0. I'm going to talk about the working memory theory.
Yeah, so I think we're ready for your PowerPoint, but and you can start your PowerPoint. But I wanted to ask you before that, I learned in my basic EMDR training about the interhemispheric hypothesis or the REM hypothesis. What are your thoughts about these theories?
No evidence at all. Zero evidence. But it is a theory. But yeah, we still need evidence. It was Francine Shapiro discovered EMDR, and I know I talked a lot with her. We were good friends, and we had almost daily contact. We talked a lot about that, and I said, okay, why not? Francine Shapiro started with something, and I also spoke with the reviewers of her first publication, and they asked her, hey, explain me, you had a walk through the park and something happened. Explain me how you think EMDR works. And he said, yeah, I don't know, but she went to some neurobiologist, and they say, yeah, maybe it's new for us, but maybe it has to do something with the REM sleep. The only thing, because that has to do with moving eyes or something.
Right.
Must be REM sleep. And then from then on, she started, hey, REM sleep is also moving eyes, but there was a theory, but it was never validated. There was no scientific support. And for everything you find, you can say it's a working memory texting task you're doing. You say, hey, bilateral stimulation works. Yeah, but it's because it's a texting task. And interesting, and then I'm going to talk about that. For instance, what also works very well is counting, or doing calculations, like 1,000 minus 7 or something works. Texting task has nothing to do with hemispheres or something. Spelling task. How can a spelling task work? Hey, what has that to do with two brains? Nothing. So Francine Shapiro knew already that there was no support, but she didn't want to change her ideas. And I said to her, if you have so much competition with the cognitive behavioral field, why don't you start with a theory and change your ideas about it, and say, hey, cognitive therapy cognitive science there's so much support for the working memory theory. Why not embrace all these cognitive behavioral therapists and say, in laboratory, you can see that the working memory theory holds in any case. We tested it many times with many PhD students. They all wanted to find out whether the working memory theory holds, whether it could be validated or not, or falsified. They tried to falsify it with all kinds of tasks, but already in 2008, there was a publication, Gunther and Botner, one of the most important publications on EMDR, but Francine Shapiro didn't want to mention that publication. But it clearly shows, if you do this or this,
same effect.
Same effect. So the whole idea about two brains, bilateral, it didn't fit at that time, 2008. And that's a long time ago.